Hi, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. Has there ever been a time in your life where you're like, wow, God, how do I handle this? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple situations in my life that I had to come to grips with, that I had to do something that was bigger than myself. And then one of those things was my addiction, my alcohol addiction. And at the end of the day, as a human being, you want to be able to control your own life. You want to be able to control your own situations. And that's kind of where I was wanting to be able to control things. But there are just some things in life that are bigger than you. And that's when it comes into play where you have to be able to submit to God. You have to be able to take yourself out of the equation. And in order to do that, what I had to do was I had to realize, I had to take account for everything that I had done in my addiction. And I had to ultimately realize that I kept failing over and over and over. So when I did my self reflection on what did Michael do to get himself out of his situation, ultimately there was nothing I did or could do to get myself out of that situation. So what I wound up having to do was submit to God. And the way I went about doing that was first, I got a Bible and I started trying to read the Word. I started attending church. I started going to AA meetings. I started meeting people that had an actual spiritual background, spiritual connection to kind of help teach me things. Because in today's society, especially as a man, you don't get the opportunity to be able to express yourself. You don't get the opportunity to be able to say, "Hey, I need help." And ultimately, at the end of the day, for somebody that needs help, it does help to ask. It does help to go out and try to tell somebody, hey, I can't handle this. I can't do this. I need you. I need God. And that was a very hard thing for me to come to grips with, was being able to express to myself that I needed something that was bigger than me. Because at the time, my ego I was the biggest thing that there was. But having said that, I was just another person. I was no bigger than the ego that I had. And I had to come to grips with that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. No matter what the field is in your life that you need God's help or you need God's guidance, first of all, you have to be able to admit that you can't do it yourself. You have to be able to submit. You have to be able to say, hey, look, God, I need you. I need you to step in for me. And that's what I started doing. I started praying. Like I said, I started getting a good group of people. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's very key and very crucial that you have a good set of people that are around you that help contribute to your growth. Because when you get around negative people, a lot of times negative people continuously try to break you down. And you don't want to get into the habit of keeping people around you that are broken. It's very hard to become what you need to become when you're around people that are broken, especially if you're broken yourself. And so for me, whenever I was coming out of my addiction, I had to wind up submitting my problems, and I wound up having to confess that, hey, I have an issue. And this issue cannot be resolved by anything that I have done. And in doing that, I was able to relieve a lot of stress, a lot of burden off myself, because I had to realize that this wasn't about Michael. This was about everybody around me. And at that point in time, I didn't realize that. At that point in time, I was going through anxiety attacks, depression, and consistently kept falling back into that same trap. Also, it doesn't help with today's society, the fact that inflation and everything is so expensive now that it causes a lot of stress on people. It causes a lot of stress in people's relationships, causes a lot of stress in your own household when you're literally trying to work just to make it. Now, dealing with that stress, a lot of times you have to find outlets, and in doing so, finding something that has a positive outlook for yourself, something that kind of detaches you away from whatever it is that's stressing you out. Now, for me, it was God. When I started reading the Bible, I started getting a peace of mind, and that was something I didn't have beforehand, but that's something that I started acquiring whenever I was reading the Bible. And then it got to a point where not only was I reaching out to people to sustain myself and get myself better, but it actually brought me to a place where I wanted to start helping out other people. Because a lot of times, most of our addictions and most of the things that we go through in life is because of misinformation. What we lack knowledge of is what causes us to wind up having a downfall in our life, because we don't have the proper knowledge of how to handle things. we're not really given a good survival book to allow us the opportunity to know how to handle things. So therefore, we take it upon ourselves to try to handle them ourselves. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you can only do so much. And whenever it becomes bigger than what you can do, that's whenever it becomes stressful. A lot of people don't know that you can go to your higher power. You can go to God. You can ask God for assistance and help. God has definitely showed up in my life and has definitely rescued me out of my addiction. I'm going on 4 years sober now, and it's because of the grace of God. But I had to come to the realization that it was above who I was, and I had to become less, and he had to become more. And that's how I was able to successfully come out of my addiction. I hope that this video has helped one of you today. And if so, leave a comment in the chat.